Hi. So, I haven't made a video about this in a while, and I thought I would go ahead and just put another post out there since the DOJ ruling came out in the Kendrick Johnson case. So, basically, the DOJ did what us on this side thought that they would, and came back and said that there was no evidence or indictment or anything of murder. So that's basically what we expected. While it was a very, very long time coming, it happened finally just the same. Since then, there's been some outright lies told by the Johnson family, namely Jackie, that I've seen that have said the DOJ basically told them, not in so many words, that they did believe that he was murdered, but there was no evidence, or they didn't have enough evidence to be able to prosecute, and that they were very sorry. The DOJ doesn't do that. They're not going to tell you what they actually think happened or whatever. They're going to stay steadfast on their statement that they released to the press. Nobody in that room told her, I would bet my entire life, that they felt like he was actually murdered, and all this stuff. It just didn't happen. So, but again, they're using that as a ploy and a cry for their plight, and their plight is now not about justice for their son, which could be understandable, but moreover about money. They've had to stop their lawsuit. They're no longer suing. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out if they do refile in 6 months, especially with this DOJ answer coming out. But it's all been just a shit show. It's completely a shit show on social media, on Twitter. You've got several players that were involved in the harassment on Twitter, a few anonymous persons. Their Twitter feeds have just gone silent all of a sudden. I know that there's prosecution going forward for the threats and things that have been made. I know of 9 people, I believe I was told, that are being subpoenaed, and their Twitter accounts are being subpoenaed as to what they've done and what they did. So, that's kind of where it stands. The other thing that I wanted to do is take a minute to, I was online tonight, I reviewed some of the comments that were on those 6 videos, the first of which has like 2,700-ish views, and then you can see that, I guess, if you have a different opinion, then you stopped watching it, the first one. And the first one, we really just started to kind of I started to kind of get into like what was going on and some of the different things that were surrounding the case. So if you stopped watching at 1, that's your loss, not mine. I'm not saying I'm the greatest video person of all time or I have the prettiest face to look at, but what I say in there is all true, and there's no evidence to the contrary in any of it. So but I wanted to take the opportunity to go over some of the comments that were in there and respond a little bit. So I saw more than once people questioned the organs. I think that I was pretty clear about that, but if not, we can go ahead and clarify. The organs, all of his organs, were intact whenever he was found. They were intact during his autopsy. There were tissue samples taken of all of his vital organs that were sent off to pathology. The organs were missing after his autopsy, and they were apparently disposed of by the funeral home. So I want you to understand something. Understand that Kendrick was found some 20 hours, 23 hours, whatever, after he initially passed away. So almost 1 full day that his body was in decomp. Okay? I've worked in the medical field. I'm telling you, when folks die, you don't want that body to sit there for an hour, because after an hour it gets stiff. After more than that, it starts to rot quickly. These things happen quickly. So he sat for 24 hours in the mat. Then they pulled him out. Then he was sent to the crime lab where photos were taken. He was put in cold storage. And then later, the autopsy was done. So his organs were in decomp. I believe it was 5 to 6 days um, before he was sent to the funeral home. It may have even been longer than that, but this has been going on for 3 years. I don't remember everything all the time. I want to say it was about 6 days before he was embalmed. Um, so you've got almost a week that a body has been decomposing. Those organs were mush. Whatever was left of them is literally rotted tissue. It's disgusting. Okay. When he finally got to Harrington Funeral Home, um, they opened him up to do the embalming, which is just an incision on the neck, and so on. And then they took the organs out. They disposed of them. They incinerated them. They weren't needed. They were no longer viable. They weren't part of him anymore. They were just decomposing flesh, which would make the embalming process already that's hard because he was dead for so long before he was embalmed, even harder. So that's where the organs went. But the biggest point to make here is that he was not found with holes cut out of his body where his organs had been harvested. That's absolutely asinine. It didn't happen. There's no evidence to that. It's just ridiculous. So that's where we're at with that. Another thing, the blood on the wall. Okay, so there was a few spots of blood that were on the wall in the old gym where he was found, not too far from where he was actually found in the mat. There is a signed affidavit statement from the female band student who had a nosebleed during practice the day before. She stated in there that the coach told her that her nose was bleeding. She covered it. I guess it was bleeding pretty bad. She ran off to the girls' bathroom and she took care of herself. There was also bloody tissue from where she had, taken care of her nosebleed in the bathroom, in the girls' bathroom, girls' locker room area. So that's where that blood came from. It was tested. It was tested to be female and tested to be hers. So the whole blood on the wall thing, either you don't know what really happened and you're just commenting out of your ass, or you're so stupid as to believe that they wouldn't test any blood that was found in a gym where a child died. Come on. So another thing that I want to add, if you get on social media and you look at all the BS that flies around about this case, and you go, oh well, he had to have been murdered, that's just too crazy to happen, I want you to look up really weird ways and happenstances that people have died. This is really not that crazy. I mean, yeah, it's pretty rare. It's rare that a kid's gonna climb into a mat for his shoes that he put in there, before the Christmas break or whatever, and he's gonna suffocate and die. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that it's not a myth. It's not unfounded. It could happen. It did happen. But people die in really weird ways all the time, and nobody bats an eye. But the reason that people batted an eye in this case was simply because he was black. He was of a lower socioeconomic class than the bellboys. And so it's just tailspin in the midst of Black Lives Matter hashtag and, the Ferguson and everything else. It became a shitstorm. It became a social media hashtag that everybody wanted to act like they knew something. And, quite frankly, from the other side, I've been part of the advocacy, if you will, for the Bell family for several years now. And what these folks have been through is absolutely unscrupulous. I mean, people have zero compassion, zero filter for the ideology of innocent until proven guilty. The idea that you are just automatically guilty because you're white and you are of a higher socioeconomic class than what this kid was because he was black. It's, I mean, do we really live in that world? Because if we do, I mean, it's not fair. It's not fair to them. It wasn't fair to Brian to have lost his huge scholarship to FSU to play football, while he still fared pretty well. That was his dream school. That's what he wanted. He had been a commit for over 2 years, and he lost that because of bullshit. Because people talk too much crap. Because the mainstream media propagates anything they can that has a racial undertone. Period. That's where it's at. So, this isn't going to be a super long video. It's not going to be a whole bunch of segments like my last ones were. But the last thing that I wanted to comment on is, who am I? Well, I'm not going to tell you who I am. I'm not going to give you my name. I've seen firsthand exactly what happens to people who put their face and their name and their voice out there with this hashtag, and I don't want any part in it. You can rest assured that I'm not related to the Bells. I'm not related to the Eakins. I don't have a dog in this fight, other than I have been in the helping field, if you will, for quite some time, and social injustice has bothered the shit out of me. I can't stand it. It's not fair. And just so you know, I would be here and I would be saying the exact same thing from the rooftop, even if Kendrick had been white and the Bells were black. It does not matter to me. In the field that I'm in, you don't look at things that way. It's not how it's supposed to work. I wasn't raised that way. So that's who I am. Who I am is someone from the outside looking in that got involved because I felt as though people were being admonished for something that they didn't do. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment. I'm sure the comments are going to be wonderful on this one too. And have a good day. Thanks.